It was never my intention to step through the threshold of his home the fateful day. It all began with a simple error, a gesture born from the kindness of a neighbor's heart. As dawn broke, my husband departed for a business trip, leaving me to navigate another solitary day at home. I busied myself with cleaning, all the while aimlessly scrolling through social media, feeling the weight of the quiet around me. As the clock struck noon, an unusual sound drifted from my neighbor's abode, piquing my curiosity. Initially, I believed it was merely the plumbing misbehaving, but as the sound persisted, a constant flow of water, it began to stir a sense of unease within me. Mr. Bennett had been a familiar presence next door for many years, a man of 60, recently widowed, navigating the quiet of solitude. He was a gentle soul, radiating a serene grace that enveloped those around him. Over the years, my husband and I had shared friendly conversations with him, yet I wouldn't describe our relationship as particularly intimate. Yet, the nagging feeling lingered, whispering that something was amiss. Perhaps he had stumbled or tumbled. The front door stood slightly ajar, stirring a sense of unease within me. I rapped gently, my voice carrying through the stillness. Mr. Bennett, are you okay? Silence lingered in the air, heavy and unyielding. With a moment of doubt, I paused, a sense of discomfort washing over me at the thought of stepping into another's sanctuary uninvited. Yet, the sound of running water swelled, and my imagination took flight. What if he had slipped into a realm beyond awareness? What if he sought assistance? As I crossed the threshold, a thrill surged through me, my heart pounding with anticipation. The living room exuded a serene charm, its neatness enveloping the space, while a whisper of aftershave danced gently in the air. Drawn by the sound, I made my way to the bathroom. The door stood ajar, a mere crack allowing wisps of steam to curl into the hallway. Good day, Mr. Bennett. I raised my voice once more, this time with greater intensity. And then, there he was before me. He stood beneath the shower, his back to me, as the water flowed down his broad shoulders like a gentle waterfall. The bathroom mirror, shrouded in a veil of steam, offered a glimpse of the scene, revealing just enough for me to absorb it without intention. My breath hitched in my throat as I stood still, engulfed in embarrassment over my blunder. Just as I was about to pull back, he shifted ever so slightly, his gaze meeting mine through the reflection in the mirror. His eyes grew wide with surprise. Yet rather than displaying anger or embarrassment, a serene calmness settled over his expression. With swift movements, he seized a towel, securing it around his waist as he emerged from the shower's embrace. I deeply apologize. I stumbled over my words, my cheeks aflame. The sound of the water reached my ears, stirring a sense of unease within me. He let out a gentle chuckle, a soothing sound that wrapped around the moment. No harm done. I ought to have secured the door. Your kindness shines through. His response took me by surprise. While many might have felt irritation, he appeared to find a certain humor in the situation. He stood there with a confidence that filled the space, unbothered by any sense of discomfort. Water cascaded from his silver-streaked hair. His calm demeanor only served to heighten my own sense of fluster. I shall take my leave, I whispered, retreating slowly. As I turned, he spoke softly. Wait, I hadn't intended to intrude. I appreciate you reaching out to see how I'm doing. It warms the heart to realize that someone truly cares. His words echoed in my mind, haunting me long after I had stepped through my front door. I reassured myself that it was merely a passing moment, an innocent meeting. Yet beneath the surface, I sensed a change had occurred. The days that followed were filled with an intriguing blend of wonder and discomfort. I steered clear of Mr. Bennett, my cheeks burning with embarrassment at the thought of confronting him. Yet his image lingered in my thoughts, refusing to fade away. It wasn't merely his appearance. It was the serenity he exuded, the warmth of his kindness. He was neither angry nor uncomfortable. He simply embraced understanding. One afternoon, While I was tending to the bushes in my backyard, a voice suddenly caught me off guard. It seems you have a knack for nurturing life, he remarked with a grin, resting against the fence that divided our properties. My initial reaction was to stammer a few words and withdraw. Yet his warm demeanor put me at ease. It's less about finesse and more about the struggle, I responded, managing a light chuckle. With a soft laugh, he drew nearer. You're surpassing what I could ever achieve. It was my wife who possessed the remarkable gift for these endeavors. His expression softened, revealing a glimmer of melancholy in his gaze. I've allowed many of her plants to wither away, unable to tend to their needs. A certain fragility lingered in his voice, compelling me to stop and listen. I could help if you want, I offered, the words spilling from my lips before I had a chance to consider them, and thus, the tale commenced. The days that followed settled into a familiar rhythm. In the quiet of his yard, I would lose myself for an hour or two, assisting him in nurturing the overgrown shrubs and coaxing life back into the neglected flower beds. He would accompany me, weaving tales of his late wife, recounting his years as a teacher, and sharing the adventures he had always envisioned but never quite embarked upon. His voice enveloped me, rich and unwavering, reminiscent of a soothing melody that beckoned me closer. In the beginning, it seemed entirely innocent, to neighbors weaving a bond together, yet the way his gaze held mine sometimes stretched out, lingering longer than it ought to have. I observed how his eyes warmed at the sound of my laughter, how his fingers would lightly graze against mine as we toured together, and I couldn't ignore the way my heart leapt at that moment. One afternoon, as we stood in awe of the freshly arranged garden, he offered me a glass of lemonade. Our fingers brushed for a fleeting moment, and a spark ignited within me, as though the very atmosphere around us had transformed. For a fleeting instant, neither of us stirred. You've done more for this place than I have in years, he murmured, his gaze locked onto mine. It's nothing, I reply, my voice softer than I had meant it to be. It's not nothing, he said, his voice carrying a weight that made my breath hitch in my throat. I averted my gaze, attempting to brush it off with a chuckle. Perhaps you simply required a touch of assistance. Perhaps I simply required a gentle nudge to recall the abundance of life still waiting to be savored, he remarked, his voice calm, his eyes fixed with determination. In that moment, I found myself at a loss for words. A part of me yearned to step back, to whisper to myself that I was bound in marriage, that this was merely the warmth of neighborly kindness. Yet, a different part of me was irresistibly pulled toward him, unable to overlook the electric connection that ignited between us. The evening when everything shifted was serene, with a gentle rain tapping softly against the windows. Earlier, my husband reached out to share that his trip would stretch on for another week. I pretended to grasp the conversation on the line. Yet beneath the surface, the heavy burden of solitude pressed against my heart. It was an unexpected turn of events that led me to Mr. Bennett's doorstep that night. A plate of cookies in hand, as if fate had nudged me there, I found solace in the act of baking. A sweet distraction from the world around me. As he swung the door open, a radiant smile spread across his face, and his eyes sparkled with astonishment. For me, he inquired, motioning toward the cookies. With a hint of bashfulness, I offered, I thought you might enjoy something sweet. My heart racing as I lingered, unable to pull away. He welcomed me inside, and soon we found ourselves nestled in his inviting living room, the glow of the fire providing a comforting contrast to the cold air beyond. We engaged in our usual exchange, weaving through topics both significant and trivial. Yet, this evening carried a distinct air. In the atmosphere, there lingered a closeness that went unspoken, yet resonated deeply within us both. As I placed my glass upon the coffee table, he swiftly extended his hand to catch it before it could topple over. Our hands met, and rather than retreating, we found ourselves suspended in that moment. I raised my gaze to meet his, a silent exchange of curiosity and inquiry unfolding between us. You don't have to stay if you're uncomfortable, he said quietly, his voice steady yet laced with a hint of uncertainty. "I'm not uncomfortable," I whispered, the words slipping out before I could hold them back. It felt like the floodgates had burst open. He leaned closer, and I remained still, captivated by the moment. The distance that separated us vanished, and as his lips brushed against mine, it was tender at first, almost hesitant, yet the moment soon grew richer, fueled by months of unvoiced desire. I was aware it was not right. Every fiber of my being cried out that this was not meant to be. In that moment, everything else faded away, leaving only the warmth of his hands around me. The way his touch ignited a sense of being truly seen, deeply desired, and vibrantly alive. Time faded into a haze. The rain outside intensified, yet within these walls, a serene hush enveloped us, broken only by the rhythm of our breaths and the gentle crackle of the fire's embrace. He halted for a moment, gazing at me as though offering a moment to reconsider, to voice a refusal. Yet, I chose not to. As the echoes of the moment faded, we found ourselves enveloped in a profound stillness, the gravity of the events that had just unfolded resting heavily upon us. He extended his hand towards mine, cradling it softly, his thumb gliding delicately over my skin. "I never wished to weave complexity into your life," he murmured gently. Words eluded me in that moment. My mind swirled with a tempest of guilt and longing, a dance of fear and exhilaration. There was a flicker of shame within me, a whisper of what I should have felt. Yet, there was another sigh, a sigh one hesitated to acknowledge, that felt a sense of liberation, as if I had finally escaped from a confining cage. I had no idea I was part of it all. I lingered longer than I ought to have that night, departing only when the rain had finally softened its grip. As I made my way home, a weight settled in my chest, and my thoughts danced with uncertainty. What had I done? And why, despite all odds, did I feel the pull to embark on that journey once more? The days that followed unfolded like a tapestry woven with threads of guilt and longing. Each look exchanged with my husband carried the weight of a hidden treachery. Each solitary moment summoned echoes of that night, flooding my mind with vivid recollections. I convinced myself it was an error, a fleeting moment that would never repeat itself. Yet, the pain in my heart whispered a different tale. Mr. Bennett and I danced around each other at first, as if our silence could somehow rewrite the past and make it vanish. Yet, the stillness that hung in the air was suffocating. One evening, I stood at the fence that divided our yards, and there he was, already waiting, as if he had anticipated my arrival. "I've been pondering our connection," he murmured softly, his gaze locked onto mine, "and I wish to shield you from any pain or disruption in your life." "Neither do I replied, though my voice wavered, as if caught in the delicate web of uncertainty. In all honesty, I found myself at a loss for what I truly desired. With a heavy sigh, he leaned against the fence, lost in thought. For countless years, I wandered through solitude, weaving tales in my mind that I was self-sufficient, that I required no one by my side. But then you appeared, and he paused, his head shaking slightly as if he were sifting through a tapestry of thoughts for the perfect words to weave into the air. What a twist this has turned out to be. Completely unforeseen. Every single moment of it. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes. It's not solely your fault. I played a part in allowing it to unfold. I'm the one who... Please, don't. He interjected softly. We share the responsibility. Yet this situation feels unjust for both you and your husband. His words were meant to soothe, yet they deepen the ache within. What shall we embark upon? With a moment of uncertainty, he extended his hand and grasped mine. We journey forth. Let us cast this moment into the shadows of memory, never to be recalled again. Yet, to forget proved far more challenging than merely uttering those words. The air between us crackled with unspoken words, lingering like a shadow, even as we make efforts to maintain our separation. Each chance encounter, each fleeting gaze, seemed to reopen an old wound. My husband, unaware of the storm brewing within me, carried on with his daily rituals, deepening my sense of solitude. One evening, my husband inquired about the reason behind my recent distance. His question took me by surprise, and for a fleeting moment, I considered sharing all my secrets with him. Yet, the dread of losing it all held me back. Instead, I wove a tale, claiming I was merely weary, that life had been a tumultuous journey. He took my response at face value, choosing not to delve deeper. Yet, the burden of the falsehood lingered in my heart. Mr. Bennett, faithful to his promise, started to draw back. He ceased his visits to the fence, no longer extending invitations for me to come over. It stung deeper than I had anticipated. Yet, I reassured myself that it was ultimately for the greater good. I dedicated myself to my marriage, striving to restore what had begun to fall apart. Yet, from time to time, I would catch a fleeting sight of him in his yard, and my heart would stir with familiar longing once more. As the months unfolded, life gradually found its rhythm once more. Yet, the recollection of that night, of our shared moments, lingered with me always. It hung in the stillness, in the pauses that danced between my thoughts. I frequently found myself pondering whether he shared my feelings, if he still held me in his thoughts as I did him. Ultimately, the tale concluded without closure, leaving behind a tapestry of unresolved threads. It is the gentle acknowledgement that certain decisions etch their marks upon us, and that some bonds, however brief, transform us in ways that last a lifetime.